Hi, my name is Coach Brian and welcome to the first day of the course. One of the tools that I was taught many years ago is something that I'm going to share with you today. That is called the C loop, and that's S-E-A, Sierra Echo Alpha. Okay? And that stands for scan, evaluate, and act. So, when we scan, that doesn't mean we have to look like a robot or something that's unnatural. Just build in to your mannerisms the habit of looking left, center, and then right, and then center, and left, and do so almost conversationally. You are going to pick up so much more about what's going on in your environment that it'll be crazy. 3 questions that I used to ask myself a long time ago, especially working overseas. I would be in an observation point somewhere or waiting for a target to run by, get some information on that individual. But it's boring. Surveillance sucks sometimes, all right? So if I noticed my mind wasn't in line with what I needed to do at that time, I would ask myself, what do I see? What do I hear? And what do I smell? Because once you start focusing on those 3 specific senses, you really start to dial in. So we have scan, that's the first letter of the mnemonic C loop, and then one of the tools underneath that we can use to help us dial in, especially our senses, are using those 3 questions. What do I see? What do I hear? And what do I smell? All right, now let's talk about the evaluation process. So we're taking all of this stuff in, but how do we know? Is it safe? Is it dangerous? Is it iffy? Well, first of all, you have your intuition. So trust your intuition a lot. Don't overreact. Don't draw attention to yourself, but pay attention to it. Okay? Then you have things that you don't know about yet. And that's why we attend trainings such as this. At the end of this course, you are going to know what a setup looks like, how bad guys try to con us into feeling relaxed and like things are okay. Because once you see more of these things go on, you're going to learn it. Lucky for us, they have been caught on different types of video, whether it's security video, phone video, different types of actual production videos. So we're going to take that, we're going to watch a few different assaults today, and then we're going to say, hey, if I was in that situation, or if I'm ever in that situation in the future, how could I be scanning to be aware of it? And then what key points of those behaviors in the bad guys should I be cueing in on to stay away from? Okay, so scan around, evaluate comes via experience, training, and knowledge, and then action. We have to do something. You have to be okay with being alarmed, being scared, getting nervous. We already know that's going to happen. So we also know that freezing is somewhat of a human response to these situations. So if we start to get into that, we have to walk our way out of it. If we start to feel fear, remember this mnemonic. And this is a lot of people, let me tell you one of the most false things I've heard about fear, acronyms and mnemonics, okay? And that is false evidence appearing real. It could be very true and accurate evidence of something that's going to kill you. So false evidence appearing real, scratch it, okay? Remember this one. Failure expected, action required. One of the best ones for fear that I've learned. Fear is a self-defense mechanism. It tells you that something is not right and your life is in danger, and that you need to distance yourself from that. So, it's natural. Get over the fact that we get afraid. I don't care if you're 7 foot tall, 310 pounds of solid muscle. When you're walking with your 3-year-old through a store and 4 people start to surround you, you're going to be afraid. maybe not for you specifically, but for your child. So this is what we're talking about, primal reactions, okay? So when that fear kicks in, how am I going to not freeze up? I may want to fight. I may want to take off. Fight, flight, okay? This course will help you with that also. Do you get physical? Do you run? You should always try to run or leave the area, I guess would be a better way to say it, okay? So when something goes off, it's rubbing you the wrong way, your sixth sense is kicking in, you see something that you know is out of place, dangerous, just not a good situation for you to be in, you find your way out. Know where your exits are, have an exit strategy in place, and go from there. If you cannot leave, you might have your kids with you, you might have a wall behind you, and you just can't leave. Well, then you might decide, do I have to take things physical, or has it not gotten there yet, and I can still use some verbal wordplay in order to work with this person's psychology? Do I de-escalate? Do I act like nothing's wrong? Reposition? There's a lot of things we can do, okay? But we have to take action. We just don't want to sit and wait. And that's dangerous because a lot of us, when we're in classes, especially self-defense classes or martial art and combatives classes, we like to tell ourselves, well, I would just do this. Well, I would just do that. And we kind of create a movie where the bad thing happens and we're the hero. I get into a fight. The girl of my dreams is over there. And bang, bang, I win the fight. And then in reality, I get slapped in the face. Shock sets in, and by the time I have a chance to do something, I get hit in the head with a cue stick. So reality is a son of a gun, okay? And we have to remember that we got to hope for the best, prepare for the worst. So let's look at this tool again. Scan, evaluate, and act. It's called the C loop. When I'm scanning, I want to ask myself 3 questions. What do I see? What do I hear? What do I smell? The evaluation piece, we're going to improve our knowledge there. Experience, training, and knowledge will help us evaluate what's dangerous and what's not based on past occurrences. And then action. What do I do? Should always try to leave. If that's not possible, how do I engage the individual? Psychologically, verbally, verbal gameplay. Do I try to de-escalate, or do I just run through them like a chainsaw? So a lot of things are going on. So I hope this section meant something to you. All right, this next philosophy is called working space. In a straight confrontation, you do not want to be in a boxing match with somebody. You don't want to be in a grappling match where everything's kind of even, whether you're boxing or you're in a grappling match, or God forbid, you're doing some jujitsu shit, right? You don't want that to happen. So normally what you want to do is verbally de-escalate if possible, be in a non-offensive type of stance as you're planning and reading your options. If you know things are going to go south, boom, you hit first. And then after you strike the person, whatever strike you used, you want to get to their side. You always want to be to the side or behind your opponent. So we teach from what we call the clock principle. So right now, I'm facing at my 12 o'clock. This is my 3 o'clock. This is my 9 o'clock. Back there is my 6 o'clock. If you were facing me, kind of like you have this camera view going on right now, I would be at your 12 o'clock. Your 6 o'clock would be behind you. Your 9 o'clock is over there. Your 3 o'clock is over there. So what you want to plan to do, especially if I'm walking towards you, is how can you take me offline a little bit, or how can you move yourself offline so that way you can come around to my 9 o'clock? Or better yet, how can you move around to my 3 o'clock? If I throw a big old cowboy punch, you duck,
You slip underneath it, you duck underneath it, you come around here, you grab me, you are now at my 3 o'clock and you're about to be at my 6 o'clock and you may be able to grab my back. So always be thinking of that, okay? Remember this also, since we're talking about your 12 o'clock, which means everything in here, if your arms were to shoot forwards out over my ears, okay, I am in your working space, okay? Let's say you grab me by the shoulder and you yank me this way. Your 12 o'clock hasn't changed. I'm still in your working space. But guess what? You're not in mine. This is optimal for you. You can still attack, damage, trip, throw, punch, bite, kick, lock, choke, do whatever. Okay? If I start to swing or turn or spin around, facing back over here, and you just keep moving with me, now let's say you're over here, facing that way. I'm stuck because now here's my 12 o'clock. Your 12 o'clock is now in that direction. I've got nothing in my working space, and I'm still in yours. So working space means cheating, not fighting face-to-face, belly-to-belly, toe-to-toe. That's not what this is about. Survival is not about that. Okay? So as fast as you can, you deflect, intercept, get off to either one of their sides, you want to be on their flanks, or behind them. And then do your damage. Handle your business and get out of dodge.
Next, we have the passive stance. And the passive stance is probably the most utilized stance as far as our stand-up work is going to be concerned. It's a split stance. It's relaxed. You're just taking 1 foot back or 1 foot forward. And normally we want to put ourselves there when we realize that something's up, or when we are already engaged in a confrontation with somebody, a verbal argument, or you see something's kind of gaining in intensity a little bit, and then your hands come up to here. In the law enforcement world, we were always taught to keep our hands in the window or use this as your fence. When I was in England, our instructor called this the fence. Build your own fence. And when I was here in the States, they said keep your hands in the window. Whatever metaphor you like, you can keep and use and teach. Keep your hands out in front of you. This is where we want to be. From our passive stance, we can do everything from defensive to offensive. I can cover up into a full shell. I can go into a half shell. I can go forward into a straight blast, right? I can drop back and do a hip bump. That'll make sense when we're talking about certain types of takedown defenses. This is the first move. I can move to the right. I can move to the left. I can move back. I can move forwards. And then I can come right back here. I can take a wider stance back, get into maybe accessing a different weapon. So it's a great stance. For weapons we use in a fight, we want to be able to use them even when we're scared, surprised, fatigued, or we are just having the worst day possible. So there will be nothing complicated, nothing sophisticated, and there is a reason for that. As soon as we get pushed, as soon as we get slapped, as soon as we get shoved, as soon as one of our friends gets hurt or seriously injured, as soon as a gunshot goes off, our abilities and mental processes and skill sets go to it's just the way it is. And the majority of martial art instructors out there, because they are good people and they don't go causing problems, and because they don't get themselves in bad situations, a lot of them have to teach without having any real world experience in fighting or in dealing with angry, aggressive people who have no qualms about committing murder, rape, or things of that nature. So that's where I've got a little bit of an advantage, having worked in corrections, in law enforcement, in the military, having been overseas, having worked as a bodyguard, having been a bouncer. I've dealt with the fear. I've dealt with the surprise. I've dealt with the feeling of overwhelm. And I'm going to pass that information along to you. And what that all comes down to is we got to keep it simple
and devastating. So let's look at the first tool. It's going to be the front kick. All right, and this can be either leg that you can use based on the situation that you have in front of you, okay? So when you think about front kick, you know, in the ring, we tend to focus on the ball of the foot, because if I can put the ball of my foot in the abdomen or in the bladder of my opponent, I can get a real good shock value there. But that's because I'm barefoot and they're normally not wearing any uniform, okay? In the street, you want to keep that foot flat. You're just trying to blast through them, kind of like a SWAT cop would kick in a door, okay? So you're just stepping forward. If you can, pick up that foot, boom, and then you settle forward. You can even be clinched up, and you just pick up your knee as high as you can, boom, and you put that foot right in their bladder. Either foot. Settle down, forward. All right, so that's the front kick. A variant of that is the oblique kick. So let's say I'm wrestling with the person, I fall back a little bit, I notice all of their weight goes to their front leg, I pick up my foot and bam, I put that heel right inside of their knee. So inside and above it, and I'm trying to kick it out. I really want to damage that knee. Same thing with this side. Pick it up, power, okay? So I have the oblique kick. So I have the SWAT kick, we'll call it, and we have the oblique kick.